Hello and welcome to Confidently Wrong, a show by regular dudes talking with confidence about content they have no right to speak about with any kind of authority, but do it anyway. I'm Wesley Nakamura and I'm joined by Mike Smith, Brian Redondo, and Savon Jones, aka Captain Vonnie. This is episode 15, and on today's show, we talk about what we're loving this week, including Young Justice, The Leftovers, Gangs of New York, and Judas and the Black Messiah. I'm confident that it's going to be the best show you've ever listened to. And well, hey, if it's not, you can always ask us for a review. Wait, so are you Airbnb-ing in New Orleans?
Yeah, I'm in New Orleans. I'm in the lower God district.
You just really needed to be in solitude, huh?
It's been f***ing sick. Yes. My human interactions have been limited to just, I guess, PlayStation?
Do you, tell your family, I'm literally going to live in the same city you're in just to get away from you?
I mean, it was kind of like a need to know. I was like, it was Sunday.
I need to know.
So, it was Sunday, and I was just at the crib, and I was like, I'm gonna get out this bitch. And I just looked up a spot, and I packed my shit, and I was like, all right, I'm going uptown. Be back in
a week.
I was like, all right, I'll be back. And
they didn't ask any questions. My mom would be asking me
she asked me, but
questions.
I was just like, yeah, I'm on break. I'm gonna just go rent a spot uptown.
Did you say? Oh, you didn't just say I'm going uptown and not coming back.
No, I said I'm renting a spot. I said I'm gonna be gone. I mean, I told my mom, and then anybody else is like,
dude, my mom would. Maybe it's just like a needy Jewish mom thing, but she would be so heartbroken if I did that. She'd be like, "What? You don't want to be around us anymore?"
Oh, for the record, she was.
I would definitely get that.
No, she was being super overbearing and aggravating. Don't get it twisted. She was like, "You got everything you need. You got your jacket. You got the coat." Like, oh no, I completely forgot to pack a jacket. Sorry, my tiny brain couldn't comprehend such big scale concepts. That's cool. No, that's why I was trying to just hurry up and be like, all right, let me hurry up before she just becomes. Did you bring water? I guess some snacks. Like, there's a Walmart around the corner. I will be okay. I will see y'all Sunday.
Did she call you to check in?
No.
Oh,
he just doesn't answer.
Yeah. You're such a.
Yeah, but I own being a piece of shit. I don't pretend to be something I'm not.
Oh. All right. Well, on that note, let's start the show, Wes.
All right. So, guys, it's been a minute. You know, some slow things happening. So, what's something that you're loving, Mike? We're gonna start with you this week.
I've just been on an HBO kick. I watched. I think last time I said I was watching 6 Feet Under, which was a good show, and now I'm watching this show called The Leftovers. The premise is one day 2% of people randomly. Have you seen it, Brian? Is that why you're nodding?
I sure have.
And did you like it? Do you feel positively about it?
Yeah, generally positive.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you a question in a second after I explain this.
Go for it.
So it's it's cool. The premise is cool, especially if in the context of Marvel, because it's literally kind of like Infinity War. It's 2% of people randomly disappear, and then how does everybody else kind of deal with that? I mean, the big difference there is 2% of people, the world can kind of go on. It's not things need to majorly change. It's 50% of people. So it's more so people kind of there's cults that pop up and stuff like that, and everybody's kind of traumatic. It's really cool. I was telling my friend Trent about it though, and he was like, "Oh, dude, have you read the book that's based on?" And I was like, "No." He's like, "Oh, it's super Jesus-y." And if that and if that's for people, that's fine. I have no issue with that. But I'm not that type of person. And it's really...
wait. Is this the one that used to star Kirk Cameron?
I don't know if it's Kirk Cameron.
Oh no.
There was a movie that came
Left
out.
Behind.
Yeah, and then
that's Jesus propaganda.
That's based on a book, and it was actually a really interesting book.
It's a cool show. It's really spooky. I like that. It's only 3 seasons. So it's clearly has a point to it. It's not I don't know if you ever watch Lost or any other J.J. Abrams show. It's just creating questions and then not really answering them. It feels like the show's really progressing, but it's definitely, I'm starting to see that. I think all of this is going to be kind of religious and Jesus-y. So I'm excited to see. if that goes there. So you've seen the whole thing, Brian.
I have, and it is definitely Damon Lindelof's baby.
Are you a religious person?
I'm religious about not being religious.
Okay, so
Wow.
does that ruin the show for you at the end?
No, not at
Okay.
all. Because even though I'm not religious, I was still raised Catholic, and I went to Catholic school my whole life.
It seems very Catholic. Like, I feel like if there was any denomination their show was going to be Catholic, like there's so much guilt in it, and like everybody's like it's like, do you deserve this or not? And I'm like,
Oh yeah, it's definitely like that feeling of punishment. And purgatory, very much like Lost.
Yeah, but like Lost in that actually goes somewhere. So it's a cool show. I mean, like that was the one thing that I really was interested in for Endgame, was like seeing more of the world of like how do people deal with this, and we didn't really get that. I think we're getting it a little bit in WandaVision, but it's cool. I mean, like, definitely watch it. It's a solid show, and like I said, it's only 3 seasons, so it's very much like pointed. Like, it's not just kind of like an endlessly episodic kind of thing.
All right, cool. If it has like an end game in mind, I'm cool with that.
When I saw The Leftovers, I really thought this was going to be about like food or something like that.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's
wasn't.
it's a food anime.
Oh God. I mean, 2% still feels like a pretty significant number you could do some fun writing stuff with.
No, yeah, I mean, it's more so about like this. It's more so like people's trauma rather than like it actually messes up the world, you know?
Yeah, those things aren't the same.
Savon, what are you loving?
I'm loving. I've mentioned on this pod before, but I'm a big fan of the cartoon show Young Justice. I think the original season had to have been almost 10 years ago. It's been out for a little minute, and I've just been rewatching it. And the show had a big issue with funding. Kind of, it had the Legend of Korra issue of the writing was good. It had a lot of fans, but getting the money to kind of get it consistently going was like a start and stop type deal. Season 3 came out 2 years ago on the DC streaming service, which I wasn't going to pay for, and they were releasing it like
that
in
exists?
chunks. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have like all the DC animated movies, a bunch of their comics. If you like DC, like, it's good content.
I like cannot stand how many streaming services there are at this point.
And that is why I didn't subscribe.
And we're gonna talk about like this. I don't know if we'll even talk about it, but the stupid Superman and Lois thing. And I was like so upset watching that. I was like, this looks so stupid. And then at the end, it was like, watch it on the CW. I was like, I don't know what the hell the CW is anymore. Like, I remember like WB11 or whatever. But then it was like, or watch it on the CW instant streaming service. And I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna actually throw my computer through a window if I hear about one more goddamn streaming service.
The pass of passes.
I love that the CW app basically spells quap. Because that's how I feel about it. Crap for babies.
But
Sorry, Savon. Continue.
so Young Justice.
No, now I'm thinking about that. No, but I've really been enjoying Young Justice because I've raved before about how the DC, as awful as their live action content is, their animated content has been grade A for decades, I would argue. And Young Justice, again, like, it's just as good. So if you enjoyed the Teen Titans show, which was kind of that cartoony anime American combo, imagine maybe it's more serious because it's Young Justice, but it's kind of a combo between that and Justice League Unlimited. So you have a huge cast of characters, but it focuses more so on the proteges of famous heroes. So you're not going to get, Green Lantern and the Flash, but you do get Kid Flash and Robin, and so it focuses on that. That's fun because you get to see a wide range of maybe not known DC characters, and it's fun how they do their interactions and have them as like a team. What makes the show amazing is that they pull no punches with the writing. They talk about like the ethics of genetics. They talk about government manipulation, social media being weaponized, fake news. They
do a good job with that.
They do an amazing job of it in the context of like superheroes.
So it's a dark show.
It has lots of fun, lighthearted moments, but they aren't afraid to go into some really heavy territory. Like,
would you say it's like a funny show that has like heavy moments, or a heavy show that has funny moments?
I mean, think of it along the lines of like most, I would say, DC animated series. Like, it's going to be more serious than not, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't have humor and whatnot in it. But you're not watching Teen Titans that's going to have you laughing more often than not. You're probably watching more so Batman the Animated Series, Justice League Unlimited, that the maturity in the writing is what really draws you in, but they obviously have humor because ultimately it's still a superhero thing. But there's arcs about cloning. They get into some really interesting existential stuff with characters. There's this one character who's a telepath, and they really get into like the ethics of a superhero who has telepathy and what like the implications of that are and aren't. And yeah, the character development, arcs, proteges, it's just so well done and well written that anyone who is just into animated superhero content would enjoy it. Again, I'm not even a big DC fan, but Young Justice, like the animated stuff, has made me a DC fan. So if you want something that's Superman related or superhero stuff, but none of that mediocre live action stuff, I highly recommend Young Justice. The seasons are fleshed out, long, minimal. There's not really filler.
How many seasons are there?
3. They're working on a 4th, but again, like there aren't any just unaddressed plot threads. There's a lot of cool foreshadowing. The only con maybe is that the cast gets really, really huge because there's proteges and the proteges become older and you get more proteges. So like if you have certain characters you're a big fan of, you might not like the screen time they get necessarily, but the world building is top notch for heroes and villains.
Well, you just got a new fan. Alexis Nakamura loves Young Justice, so she's gonna be Savon's biggest fan now.
Yeah, all
social
my
media.
comic book loving friends too. They always talk about Young Justice. It's definitely
never
on my
heard
watch
of this
list.
show. Like, is this a fault in marketing, or is my head just really up my ass?
So the issue with the show
Both?
was
probably.
it came out on like Cartoon Network, like I said, almost 10 years ago. The show was popular, but I think that they wanted the show to be able to like sell more merchandise, and I think there was also something to do with I think a lot of women enjoyed the show too. It ended up being a case of
That's problematic. We can't have a show be successful if women
Can't have a
enjoy it, so.
nerd show that
Yeah.
like encourages females.
but the problem was that they wanted to
sell.
sell. They wanted to sell merchandise, and they realized that the target audience weren't big merchandise purchasers. So even though it was well received, it made it hard for them to justify.
Yeah, it's well known women don't shop.
I mean, if you're trying to push action figures
What
and all
the
that, like, yeah, I'm serious. I'm saying, if you're just trying to push action figures and stuff, like, yo, they did their research. I don't know if I agree with it, but
Let me say one thing along the lines of a Disney and excuse me. Yeah.
by the way, it originally released.
I'm
in
about to
2010.
eat my words, so my body is revolting against me right now. But I finished Harley Quinn.
Yeah, nice.
I think 7.5 was a little cold. I think 8 is the floor, maybe 8.5. Just because it the story really moves forward. I didn't finish it for the show we recorded when I judged them. I think like the point I was watching was like very episodic and like wasn't quite yet like, because like there's the moments at the end of the seasons where it's like essentially 3 episodes that run into each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can't really judge it without having those because those are like the climaxes, no pun intended.
Gotcha.
Folks, can we give an applause?
Yeah,
The first ever Mike
I'm-
recap.
Mike was so confidently wrong.
I was. I mean, like, yeah.
That show is so good.
Yeah,
it's
season-
an 8, and isn't 8 a satisfactory score?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean,
So
especially in Mike's
okay,
gauge.
yeah, and Mike's
Yeah.
first of all, Mike's gauge, but 8 is a for sure satisfactory, and 7.5 was like drag
Yeah.
this man behind a truck.
Yeah, no, because you were at 7 at first.
That
Okay,
half
fair.
point. Ooh.
I can tell my mama I made a B, maybe a low B. If I tell her
That's
I
all
made
the
a high
difference.
C, she don't want to hear that. That was a high C.
All right, we'll go B plus, and I think that's an appropriate.
Eileen was not about a 75. It wasn't gonna happen.
Do
Oh,
Harley
the Bane
and-
Batman fight.
All right, really quick, just so I can understand, and while we're still on the DC animated show, do Harley and Poison Ivy like have relationships in the canon elsewhere?
Yes.
Okay.
It's something
Oh,
that
they
they
do?
developed. Yeah, it's more of a newer thing because they've started to move Harley Quinn out of just being purely a subsidiary of Joker. So some of that agency has meant them developing her relationship with Poison Ivy.
Are there any, at least in the Marvel movies, or any like really mainstream Marvel content? I don't think there are any LGBT characters yet, are there?
Mainstream
In the movies, no.
depends. I mean, I
There's-
think
Joe Russo plays a gay guy in the beginning of Endgame and like that, but that I don't think there are any superheroes that are
I
active.
think Iceman is,
But not in the
But that's
movies.
recent. Not in
Yeah.
the movies.
Yeah.
No.
in the context of the movies,
You think
No.
the mouse just won't allow that?
Nah, I think it's just. I mean, you just got to think about the cast of characters. I think this is just one of those they're gonna probably be more open to introducing it now, just because of the size of their platform and whatnot. But
Well, it's interesting
maybe
because
Valkyrie.
they're-
Maybe I think did they leave
no,
Valkyries?
no, she's a thing with Thor. She's interested in
Valkyrie?
Thor.
She
Yeah,
does?
they have like
No,
kind of,
they
No.
never had a thing, son.
no, not a thing.
He only
I thought
has
that
eyes for
wasn't
Natalie
she?
Portman.
Wasn't she? Who doesn't? Jewish queen. Yeah, I thought that was like a heavy plot point there.
No.
I didn't interpret it that way. Maybe it
Um,
could happen. There's like flirting. There's a lot of flirting.
I wonder if it's we don't need to have this whole conversation, but I wonder if it's like an intentional thing because like, and we'll talk about this with WandaVision, but like, especially with that show, they're making a really concerted effort to have like a diverse cast, racially, but it seems like the mouse is not keen on LGBT quite yet.
You might have a point.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I think give it
All
some
right.
time.
I'll go next. Brian, you're gonna finish us off. So mine is Gangs of New York. I fired it up on HBO Max.
Have you
over
seen
past
the movie
couple
before?
days. I think I've seen the beginning before, but I don't think I've watched it all the way through. Some of it looked familiar, so I must have seen bits and parts here and there, but I finally sat down and just watched the whole thing. I really enjoyed a lot about it. I mean, I think first and foremost, you just gotta like enjoy Daniel Day-Lewis's Bill the Butcher character.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he just like is that character, right? I don't know what else
He
he's
is every
done.
character. It's Daniel Day-Lewis. Like he's like the definition of like method, like character acting.
Yeah, I mean, I'd imagine when he does other roles, he's just a completely different person.
No, he's
You
like
don't-
known
yeah,
for going method and like staying
Okay.
in character, like on set and shit like that.
yeah. I mean, well, that's kind of scary though, because that dude is a psychopath.
Yeah, I
so
think
hopefully
people
he-
just try and avoid him. Like I think he just kind of sits there like in his zone, you know?
Oh my god, that's terrifying. I think there are some things that we could criticize. I mean,
there's one
Leonardo-
big thing we can criticize about this movie, and you're gonna have to bleep me here because, like, while we're talking about casting, like, it's Daniel Day-Lewis, who's one of the most accomplished actors of our generation, playing opposite Cameron Diaz. Like, and Brian.
Why are you
like,
mad at
he
what's
loved-
wrong with Cameron Diaz?
Because
She's the worst.
Stands out in this movie, and it's like it almost sometimes it feels like you're watching two different movies. Like you're watching these like it's Leo, who's a great actor by all metrics, like playing with Daniel Day-Lewis. And then like they'll cut to like Cameron Diaz, and it feels like you're watching like a rom-com. And it's like, and then maybe
The Mask 2.
yeah, exactly. And it's like, what is this movie trying to do here? Like, was this like intentional, or is this just like the worst casting mistake like of all time? Because it like pulls the movie in two completely opposite directions. I love
Yeah.
this movie. I think it's great. But it's just
Is she a bad actress, or is it just like you associate her with rom-coms?
she's
bad.
both. Yes, yes to your questions.
Remember when she used to be in movies?
I'm not Cameron Diaz's biggest fan ever. Mike knows this. We talked about The Holiday before, and how much
God,
I hate Cameron
throwback.
Diaz,
Yeah.
his work. But
I think I know.
it's in one of the hidden episodes. So
We'll
if you want
release it
access
one
to that,
day, on our
let me know.
Patreon.
out the Disney vault.
if comfy.com ups the
Yeah, when that comfy money comes through.
I wasn't as distracted by her in this movie. I thought she was fine. She plays an important role in like motivating some of the conflict and stuff like that. Like the 2002 movie, right? Its tagline was "America was built in the streets." And I just thought
It's
like how
that could either be like a 50 Cent like
right
gang movie.
Well, and I
or,
think that was
like-
intentional, right? Like Scorsese didn't come up with that, but somebody did who was like, let's play on like how Notorious B.I.G. Was
Yeah.
like still kind of popular and
Probably
They
the
play
same
music?
exec that cast Cameron Diaz.
yeah.
What was your question,
Uh,
Simone?
Wait, did the trailers like use like hip hop music or something?
Ooh, that's
doubt
a great
it.
question. I wonder how
maybe.
the movie
It's
was
possible.
marketed, like what they were trying
Yeah.
to do.
Because it's supposed to be like how New York was built and how democracy was built.
And it
that
has
kind of
almost
thing.
like it has like a satirical tone to it sometimes, or like kind of like an over the top tone to it, where it's not just like a
little
straight
bit.
up drama, especially with like the fighting and like they're all coming out into that middle of the square kind of thing.
So a little
Yeah.
campy.
Yeah,
It's
which
a
I
little
think
bit, yeah.
Yeah, which I think is that seems intentional, and I think Scorsese like nails that tone well. And like the thing is, like the great actors in that movie know how to walk that line of like, this is like a good performance, like it's really dramatic, like there's clearly like, it also takes place over a long period of time, and the actors do that really well of like demonstrating the relationships over time. And then it's just Cameron Diaz, like, what are you doing here?
Acting.
It's like you're waiting for Ben Stiller to come on screen.
Is it like Jack Black
Jim
and
Carrey.
King Kong, where it doesn't matter what you do, I
Yes,
associate you with these other
yes,
things?
yes,
Absolutely.
100% a great comparison.
I like Jack Black and King
But
Kong.
Jack Black
he
does a good
works.
job in that
Yeah.
movie. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
that's what I was
like,
wondering. I'm like, people could be out their genre and still be good. Y'all are saying she's out her genre and she's not good.
She was never good in her own genre.
I feel
That's the
like
problem.
I feel like
Charlie's Angels, guys. It was amazing.
no, Lucy Liu carries that.
I never watched it. I don't know.
Maybe we'll have to do that on this.
I
But
saw a little
maybe
bit of it
not.
on TNT. like, a few
I
weeks
feel
ago.
like
The
they
editing
wanted.
is
I
fucking-
feel like they wanted like Katie Holmes or like Maggie Gyllenhaal, and then they had to like settle for Cameron Diaz. Like, there's
For
no
which movie?
for Gangs in New York. Like,
Oh,
I feel
okay.
like there's no way she was the primary choice.
Remember when Katie Holmes got recast and became
Oh, yeah.
Maggie
Maggie
Gyllenhaal?
Gyllenhaal, yeah. And they're
That was
both
great.
just they're both just terrible. Ugh,
When did this happen?
I hate
Maggie
Rick.
Gyllenhaal is way better.
I hate
What
Rick.
show?
In The Dark Knight, and well, in the Batman
From Batman Begins to The Dark Knight.
Yeah, Rachel is. Don't tell me you've never noticed this. Oh my god.
Savon has just a confused look on his face, everybody. Like, super confused.
I know Maggie Gyllenhaal was the one she was the Ra's al Ghul's daughter in Dark Knight, but
Nope.
Simon's just like, man,
No.
all white women look the same.
Did you
That
notice
was the
when
third movie, and not Maggie Gyllenhaal at all.
whatever you think I noticed, I promise you I didn't. I saw
Okay.
the second
All
one
right.
with Joker and the one with Bane.
Yeah.
Vaguely remember the first one. I only recently discovered that Scarecrow's in all three.
But you like DC a lot.
Yeah, not they live action. They
But these are good movies.
yeah, all right.
What
Ooh.
the?
The Christopher Nolan Batman movies have aged less well to me over time.
Wow, that is such a bad
I
take.
might kind of agree
Oh,
with that.
what?
They're a little bit long.
I think The Dark
involved.
Knight's the best superhero movie of all time.
See, I
It's too
used to
long.
think that, and now I'm
It's
like,
too
you
long.
know,
Joker
I don't.
talks too much.
He won an Oscar for talking that much.
I don't give a diggity damn about the Oscars. It's not a bad movie,
Diggity
but
damn. Diggity
you know,
damn.
I've
Regular
reevaluated my
damn?
standards
No,
for what I
diggity.
like in a superhero movie.
Let me point out one thing. So in Gangs of New York, and I'm sure there are many things that cinema buffs would point to. I'm not a film whatever expert. There was this cool scene, and maybe it's simple, but there was the scene where they're like trying to draft and hire a bunch of people to fight in the Civil War out of New York, and so that you've got these young men in brand new whatever uniforms and,
Mhm.
and their brand new backpacks on. And they're getting onto the ship, and at the same time, it then pans up to this crane, and it's offloading dozens of wooden coffins onto the dock at the same time. And so
Mhm.
it was just this kind of cool juxtaposition of like, you're just really going to the slaughterhouse, right? It's just this factory. The
Mhm.
Civil War is the backdrop for this factory of death
Mhm.
that these young men are being sacrificed to. And then within, right, this 5-point setting that the movie takes place in, right, that is also a place where massive amounts of death are happening and fighting and battles. And so there's all this like juxtaposition of like these battles and dying, and how like our country is forged out of these violent conflicts. So
I had no idea that it took place during the Civil War. I haven't seen the movie, but it would be great if there were a sequel that's a mashup between Gangs of New York and Lincoln, and Daniel Day-Lewis plays both title characters. Make it happen, Scorsese.
and they used the N-word liberally in that movie.
Do
it
they?
is- it is all over the
I don't
place.
remember
yeah.
that at all.
No, you have to rewatch it, and it's just left and right.
So it's a
N-words.
Civil War movie. When you say Gangs of New York, my headpiece thinks like, oh, okay, so it's the 1950s.
No, it's very much.
No.
Civil War.
This
They
is-
also
oh,
like.
okay.
I remember watching that in my 7th grade social studies class because Mr. Kavoris wanted
It's
to
an
show
old
us
movie?
2000s, like early 2000s.
It came out in 2002.
Yeah, and like they also show a scene of like people like revolting against the draft and stuff like
Mhm.
that.
That's kind of the climax at the end.
and it's really long, and I think like they do that to. I don't know. It's really long.
Yeah.
It's really long. 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 It's really
So you have to watch it over multiple class sessions. Is that the idea?
No, he only showed us that one scene because like he's not going to use key education time to watch Cameron Diaz.
Oh dang. We watched all of Birth of a Nation in high school.
Really?
Oh my god!
Yeah, right.
Why did they show that to you?
Because it was my APS history class, and it was we were all black teenagers, and our teacher was like, "Yo, this is historically relevant," and we thought it was hilarious.
You thought it was funny?
It was so over the top, and it was like, something so crazy it doesn't seem real. I was like, "Yo, these people for real?" We were laughing our asses off because it was like, "Oh wow, they really." Unironically, like this movie was hot back then.
Yeah, man.
They was in the White House, like, yo, this is tough.
Oh god.
In Gangs of New York, there are also obvious parallels to like what was happening in or portrayed in Warrior, and so it's interesting to like watch how like there are a lot of similarities, and I'm sure Warrior uses a lot of those same ideas and themes and conversations. But like they actually do in Gangs of New York, they show Asian people or Chinese people like occasionally, but they're like they only get like a couple of frames, and then it pans away from them, and like you see something else, and they don't have any speaking parts, and they're just super invisible.
Only Wes would be able to spot them.
Yeah, and then like 18 years later, now we've got, or 19 years later, now we've got Warrior, and it's completely flipped that, right? It's like we're saying like, no, these people or the filmmakers of Warrior are trying to push back against that, like that they're just backdrop, right? Like, so that's pretty cool.
Well, you also can't talk about that time period on the West Coast without talking about Chinese immigration.
I'm sure you could.
I mean, you could.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know.
Just
someone will
the
find a
entire
way.
history of Western movies.
Yeah.
People talk about the South and clean up slavery real quick.
Yeah, for
Fair
sure.
enough. All right, confident.
All right.
Also,
Here we go.
I really want the movie reviews by 7th graders. Savon, can you make that happen? That would be wonderful. Just show them like movies that we're supposed to take seriously, but I want a hot take from the 7th grade.
That would be such a FERPA violation, but would be so sick.
Oh yeah, parents would probably hate.
Bleep out their
Why
names.
you got my child watching this? Like
Dude.
the clout.
The cloud. Hey, we need that.
Look, that comfy money
guys.
hasn't come in yet. Yeah, so we're gonna have to use your child's labor.
Brian, what have you been loving this week?
So I was texting you guys last night saying that, oh God, I haven't really been loving anything. And so I was going to just talk about what I was moderately amused by, which is binging 3 seasons of Ozark on Netflix and talking about
I heard good things about it.
Can you give us like a 2-minute review? If you
It's like it's a workable derivative of Breaking Bad. Let's say that. Like it's pretty good. It's no Breaking Bad. And you know where it's getting its roots from. So it's that kind of show. It's like, it's going to tide me over until Better Call Saul comes back. So initially I was going to talk about this show. But last night after I texted you guys, I threw on Judas and the Black Messiah. And so
I've heard good things about that.
There's a movie that you also got to show to 7th graders. This movie is like pretty incredible. I had very high expectations to begin with, just based on the hype.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm pleasantly surprised that those were exceeded. Like this movie, it has like such like style and force and pulsating energy throughout its entire runtime. The performances are really incredible. Daniel Kaluuya, he plays Fred Hampton, who's the chairman of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party in the late 1960s. And then you got Lakeith Stanfield from Sorry to Bother You in Atlanta, who plays a crime informant who's infiltrated the Black Panther Party and is basically snitching and feeding information to the FBI, who's running their own counterintelligence program, COINTELPRO, as some people might know. And Jesse Plemons is the FBI handler, who's also really cool. And then you got Martin Sheen, who's J. Edgar Hoover. And the film is just, it's beautifully shot. Like I said, it's dripping with style. And these 2 knockout performances from Daniel Kaluuya and Lakeith Stanfield really anchor this movie. And it's just ready to burst off the screen like any given moment. And so I gotta say this is like a must watch.
So this is like the
sure.
first movie of this HBO actual movie theater deal that I feel like is actually a good movie and like a good film. Like,
no shade to Wonder Woman.
No, lots of shade to Wonder Woman. Yeah, Wesley's like gagging right now. But I mean, like, first off, those two guys have just been absolutely killing it lately, and it's cool for it to like even be on the up and up, and now it's like them both having like leads in a really dope movie. But again, I mean, like, for me, it's like interesting, like, now this is the first like actually good film I feel like that's like would have been successful in movie theaters and is gonna be successful here.
Yeah, that's all I kept thinking about while watching it, is how much I would love to see this in a big packed movie theater. But it did feel pretty cinematic on its own merit, you know, on HBO Max. And like knowing that I only have a short window to watch it, gave it some, you know,
how
a little
long
push.
Is it going to be on HBO for?
I think it's only going to be on for like 3 weeks, maybe 4. And it's already been out for, I want to say, a week or 2 at this point.
Streaming
as we're
March
recording.
14th.
Should we watch it and talk about it on a future show? I'm down. I would be interested in seeing
Did
it.
you watch it?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
No.
So I have a question, Ryan.
Go for it.
I was fortunate enough to have learned and just like felt like when this movie came out, I already pretty much knew the story already just because I studied it in school. I learned about it. It's something I've gotten to read about and learn in depth. I have a very strong personal policy of just not watching sad Black people history movies because to me, it's not entertaining. I watch Black Panther. I'm not about to watch 12 Years a Slave. I'm about to watch The Help. I'm not about to just watch period. Like, even if it's a great, well-shot movie, I'm not about to just watch things happen to Black people for 2.5 hours or however long.
Yeah, I feel you.
Is this one of those movies? And even if it is, do you feel like it just pays? Do you think it does right by the story? Because one critique I have heard, it's something I've kind of felt strongly about too, is people don't realize how young people in the civil rights movement really were. Like, MLK was like Mike and I's age, like in his mid-late 20s doing some of this stuff. And, you know, even Fred Hampton, he was like, what was he like? He was a teenager.
He was 21.
Right?
Wow.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, he was 21.
That's crazy.
Exactly. So just, I guess, with those things that I think about in mind, do you feel like the movie still, like, was respectful in those aspects, or did it justice? Do you feel like they cleaned it up or whitewashed it? You know, even the recent Harriet Tubman movie, I heard, like, negative things about how they portrayed her story.
Who directed it? Is it Black directed, or is it?
Yeah, it's this guy Shaka King. I really don't know what his previous work is, but yeah, it's like a Black production through and through. Shaka King's the director. The Lucas brothers, who are kind of like a indie comedy twin brothers.
Ryan Coogler produced it.
Ryan Coogler was a producer. And yeah, Savon, I definitely feel what you're saying. Like, I'm sort of the same mind, especially, you know, historical serious films. Like, you don't want to see that kind of stuff. It's painful to watch and kind of like twists the meaning of those movies. They become like kind of grotesque.
Mm-hmm.
But this film, I think takes kind of a different angle because of, you know, just think about the title, the Judas character, the crime informant kind of vehicle to get into the story, right? It's not just a biopic, but it's also kind of a crime informant genre movie at the same time. And it's not just about what happens to Fred Hampton, but it is very much about what Fred Hampton was doing, and more specifically what like the Black Panther Party was doing in Chicago. So you get to see stuff like the free lunch program. You get to hear them talk about how they're trying to establish a free health clinic. You see Fred Hampton go into other neighborhoods, non-Black neighborhoods, and try to create a coalition of like-minded people. And then you have the Judas character, right? You have the crime informant who is sort of enmeshed in the Black Panther Party while also talking to the FBI, and he's got his own reasons for what he's doing, but you definitely see him struggle straddling those two worlds, as well as his own world, right? And this guy sort of like came from a life of low-level crime. So it's really, I feel like, through the Judas character as the protagonist, Lakeith Stanfield's character, you're getting a lot more nuance than you would from just a normal biopic that shows how Black people were victimized, right? I think there's a greater conversation that's happening in the movie between Black people from a lot of different perspectives, and the movie's better for it. And to be honest, I don't think there is that much. There isn't a lot of heavy violence in the film. I mean, there definitely is. There's gunfights and stuff like that. But it's not, it's not like Selma where you're seeing people just get the shit kicked out of them.
Yeah,
like for 2 hours.
Exactly. Okay, cool. Okay, I like that because one thing, and this is just personal experiences. I do wonder if people who aren't well versed in the actual history behind these films, I'm curious as to okay, I know how I feel about the Black Panthers because I've read about them at length and know some of the nuance. To someone who was a layperson, what are they taking away from this film? Because I think a lot of people don't know about California gun laws, how they were impacted by the Black Panther Party open carrying, or they don't know about the free lunch programs, but it's just the nuance, right? Because they also had actual criminals amongst their ranks too. And there's a lot of nuance to the Panthers, so I'm always curious. It's very easy to just say we don't have time for nuance in this movie. We got tickets to sell and Oscars to bait.
It's also interesting, before you answer that, I think context for this movie is it hasn't it seems like everybody's talking about how great it is, but it's not like it's become controversial, I feel like typically with these things you'd see Ben Shapiro yapping about it somewhere, or conservatives would be upset about it, and maybe my head's just up my ass here, but I don't think it's gotten to that point quite yet.
Yeah, we've reached a point in culture where a movie about the Black Panthers can get made and be put on a huge streaming service. That's outrageous. I remember Spike Lee talking about how hard it was to get Malcolm X made. And suddenly, now we have this movie. But yeah, I think,
or not suddenly, right? I mean, I think that's what you're pointing out.
Right.
MJ funded most of that movie.
For real?
Malcolm X?
Yeah,
or
I think the movie.
The Judas and the Black Messiah.
No. Malcolm X. I think Michael Jordan.
Yeah, Michael Jordan funded Malcolm X.
Really?
Yeah, he funded that.
I didn't know that.
I thought he was apolitical.
He was in certain regards, but he definitely gave money to a lot of causes. This is the early '90s, bro. Spike Lee was that dude.
Yeah, I know they had a relationship.
He made him that commercial, right? Gotta be the shoes.
So
good
point though.
I think we've reached a moment where we've reached a tipping point already, right? With how Black Lives Matter has become pretty mainstream, I would say, at this point. Especially after last summer, and the movie deals directly with similar type issues, about heavy policing and how that sort of animosity between police and the people they're meant to serve and protect. So I think that's what makes this movie a lot more palatable to people, and we no longer see these groups political groups like this as fringy anymore, or see that militancy as threatening. Well, I'm sure some people do, but a lot of us younger people probably don't anymore.
Nice. I'm searching Judas and the Black Messiah, Ben Shapiro, right now.
Why are you doing that to yourself? You massive.
I mean, I think it's just interesting. These people push back against these things, especially lately when it's I think about this meme Savant sent me where it's channels be oh, we're supporting Black History Month, and then it's just every movie is about a slave, or it's about vicious really grotesque visualizations of Black oppression in this country, and it's who is that supposed to be for? I don't know if I'm not
watching it.
Yeah, so it's it's interesting to see if this is a movie that's about empowering of Black people, but not in a almost trauma porn type of way.
No, that's the word. That's the term, trauma porn. Look, I'll put on Django.
Yeah, which is the opposite,
I mean, it's pretty graphic there too, but at least Jamie Foxx can still whip slave masters. I'm all right. It balances out.
Retribution.
It's
Well, friends, that was a great episode of Confidently Wrong. Remember, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at confidently_pod. Leave us a comment on any of these things that you've seen, whether you want to see Judas and the Black Messiah, whether you think it is trauma porn, as Mike and Savan pointed out. Make sure you visit our sponsor, comfy.com. Tell them, what we sent you, put in our, what is the promo code,
CW.
Yeah.
Not the channel.
You'll get a 0% discount. It'll be great. Tell them we sent you. We're out. Have a good one, y'all.